It's a great honor to be here in the Haveli. It's a beautiful room. And I offer my obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to all the previous acharyas, and to all the devotees present here today. Vanchakalpatarubhascha, Kripasindhamevacha, Patitanam Bhavanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. In the Sri Upanishad, I'm always struck by the verse in which we hear that Krishna is the closest one to us. He's in our hearts and has always been there. In the Bhagavad Gita also is mentioned by Krishna himself, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridaya Arjuna Tishtiti. In several places he talks about how he's there within the heart. And Prabhupada mentions that he's our companion within the heart. Does anybody know Latin? And where the word companion comes from? Latin speakers? It's pani, which is bread, pane, companion, means that it's somebody that you break bread with. That's where the word comes from, a companion. It's somebody that is so close to you that you get together to have paratha, or chapatis, or bread, sourdough, preferably. So it means a real person. Also in the Bhagavatam, the second canto, one of the most charming pastimes of all, when Brahma is praying to Krishna for the empowerment to create the universe, he gets the blessings of Krishna. And do you remember what Krishna says to Brahma and what he does? Tapa is kind of at the beginning. Yeah, you would remember that because you're such a personable devotee, a companion. He shook his hand and he said, Bhadram te, good luck, Brahma. Isn't that nice? Krishna's a person. He's a companion. In the story of Krishna killing Aghasura, and just afterwards there's a picnic, right? Say yes. Yes, there's a picnic. And during the picnic, the calves wander off into the vastness of Gokula, and the boys get an anxiety because they're responsible for the calves. Come on up, we planned this, you can come. And do you remember what Krishna said when he was wandering around like that? Do you remember what Krishna said when the boys wanted to go find their calves? It's kind of a secret thing. Yes, go ahead.
Did he say that they should stay there? He'll go.
Exactly, Prabhu. Very good. It's nice that you know that. He said, you stay here, I'll go get them. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he loves his friends. He actually loves all living entities. We're his parts and parcels. He's very friendly, Prabhupada says. He's called Suhrit. He's the most friendly. And you can see it when he's with his friends in Gokula, and the cows wander off, and then they want to go find them, and Krishna says, you stay and take your lunch, I'll go find them for you. So he goes off to find the calves. So he doesn't want his friends to be inconvenienced. And so Krishna he's funny, he's also very kind, and we're intimately connected with him, the most intimately of anybody, because although everyone in our lives may come and go at some time, whether we have a good relationship with them or not, with others in our lives, they'll be there for some time and then not, but Krishna's always with us, constantly within our hearts. And he's always our well-wisher. And I was listening to Prabhupada this morning, and he was talking about how Krishna always respects our free will. He doesn't interfere. He says it in the Bhagavad Gita, Samoham sarvabhuteshu, nami dvesho stina priya. That I remain neutral towards those in the material world because they have their free will and I don't want to interfere with it. And he maintains all living entities also. For instance, everyone gets their quota. An ant gets a little sugar and it's happy. 1 grain would be fine for a few days. And an elephant has to have a lot more than that. But Krishna is supplying to all living entities. The Upanishads say, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam, Yo Vididhati Kaman. Which basically is that Krishna is maintaining all living entities at the same time. And he doesn't interfere, but it's his wish. Prabhupada writes in the first canto, 2nd chapter, 17th verse. Anybody know what it is for 10 points? Without looking. 1, 2, 17. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana dridnyam taksto hibadrani vitunoti suritsatam. Another one, suhrit. Krishna's the friend within the heart. Suhrit means best friend in the heart. So he's there, and he's also, the other name is Vidunoti, everyone say. Vidunoti is the one who helps us sort out all the important things from the non-important things. If we want him to, he'll help us do that, to that process. In the purport to that verse, Prabhupada writes that Krishna wants us to come back to Godhead more than we can desire. Isn't that nice? So there's a way that he's always there for us, he's always close to us, and he's also our best friend. And, there's a lot of ands, and he's known as the Bhoktaram Jagatapasam, the one that we can give everything to. And you may have something really nice, but not everybody can receive it. And by Krishna, he's so accommodating that he'll take anything from us and accept it if we give it to him with love. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that anything you do, anything you give away, anything you eat, he starts on that level. Yat koroshi arashnashi yas johosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kontiya tat kurishva mararpanam. That if you do it as an offering to me, whatever you're doing now, whatever you're eating, giving away, then I'll accept it, and you'll get the benefit. And also, for those who are more tuned in to the fact that Krishna is a person, he says, Patram pushpam palam toyam, yome bhaktya parayachati taraham bhakti paritam ashnami paritapmanaha. That if you give me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, which really means, you cook something nice if you can, and offer it to Krishna with love, then I'll accept it. So this is important because not everyone can take what we give. There have been religious movements around the world where people went around to give some process through which people become purified, but most people don't want it. And it's hard to give it to anybody. But Krishna, he's always there, ready to take what we offer, and he can digest it and then make it beneficial for us. And Sarvaloka Maheshwaram is another way that Krishna relieves our anxiety. Have you ever thought about this? This verse? Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, so he says that I'm the controller of all the 3 worlds. So what does that mean? It means you don't have to worry so much. Once when I was in business and I had a setback, I was deeply lamenting, and one of my mentors said, "Hey, you're not the supreme controller." I immediately felt better. Isn't that a nice philosophical point? Turn to the person next to you and say, "Hey, you're not the supreme controller." If it's your spouse, you probably heard it before. Your spouse ever tell you that? Yeah, you're not the supreme controller. And Krishna says, I am. What's better, to be the king or the servant of the king? I always feel it's the servant's better, because king's a big headache. Even temple president or the temple commander, whatever you're in charge of, becomes difficult. But Krishna can handle it. It's nice to have a best friend, and that's the next thing he says. Hare Krishna. I'm your best friend. I'm there within the heart. Those are three real anxiety relieving tenets, aren't they? Say yes. Yeah, because then the last thing he says, Gyatva mam shantam richati. If you get this, if you know this, Gyatva, if you know these three things, then you'll always be peaceful. Because if you're not the supreme controller, then hey, you do the best you can, right? Do the best you can with what you've got right now, and depend on Krishna, and do what Krishna wants you to do also. That's really important. Last night we read this verse that never gets old. In fact, Jiva Goswami says in one of his commentaries that the devotees are unlimitedly grateful to Krishna for uttering these words. Can you think what they are? What I'm thinking? The verse we read last night that the devotees are unlimitedly grateful for? Sarva dharman parityaja, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayi shamimashrichaha. And that is, just surrender to me, I'll deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not worry, do not fear, do not hesitate. And this is also, Krishna offers to us as a friend, that I'll take care of you. And Prabhupada, commenting on this, says that, let's just say we're sitting here and a person, anybody here have any affairs they have to deal with, like business affairs or taxes or student loans? Anything you're worried about at all? One person only? Only one person is worried about anything in their life? Okay, let me ask again. Do you have any problems right now that you could list on a piece of paper? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so a person comes in the room, puts up a little table here and puts the briefcase on it and says, all right, line up, I'm going to take care of all your affairs. Any problems you have, I'll deal with it. Would you get in the line? Yeah, but then you might start thinking, like, what's the angle here? What does he want in return? Am I going to have to hand over my firstborn? Or, whatever's going to happen, we don't necessarily trust that people can do that, take care of all of our affairs. That's a tall order, because maybe they can't even take care of their own affairs. But what if the Supreme Controller comes in and says, I'll take care of all your affairs? And then what would you think? Good idea, right? So if you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you read that verse, you say, wait a minute, let me check it again. I surrender to Krishna, he takes care of all my affairs. And he's my best friend, and he's the Supreme Controller. It sounds pretty good, right? Say yes. Yeah. So this is the choices. And Prabhupada also, on a morning walk, he said, there was a gentleman who asked him, but isn't there some qualification for surrender? Prabhupada understood where he was going with the question and interrupted him. He said, no. You can, as a living entity, you can surrender at any time. You don't have to have special adhikari. It's our nature. We can at any time say, yeah, I surrender to Krishna. You want to try it? Okay, go ahead. There it is. And all you have to do is keep doing that and just keep surrendering to Krishna. And there's ways to do that. Accept things that are favorable for devotional service and get rid of the things that are not favorable. And always consider Krishna as my protector and my maintainer. And be meek and humble. Be humble. And also consider that Krishna owns everything, including myself. What do you think so far? Haribol? What do you think, really? Did you hear anything that stuck in your mind? Yes? Okay, yes, please tell us. We have an extra mic because I'm sacrificing by wearing this contraption on my head so we can have an extra mic. What did you hear that stuck?
I got stuck on saying I surrender, but what does that really mean?
Well, it feels good to say, right?
It feels really good to say. It's like, so what do I need to do to surrender, or is it just enough to say I surrender?
Well, it sure helps to say it, but there are things that we can do also. One of the things Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, in the 31st verse, Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manava. May I have that verse, please? Can I demand things and they just happen? Okay. Well, look at that. Pardon me?
You're not the controller.
I'm not the controller. My wife just told me. So I can read it from a book. I can read it out loud to the devotees. If anybody has, we don't have Bhagavad Gitas here, right? Yeah. Prabhu, you're so helpful. You're an affable presence, you know that? Thank you. Okay, I just need glasses, and they happen to be in my bag, which is over there. So this purport, once you hear it, you're going to feel very good about your life, and you'll have complete direction about what to do, and you'll always be happy hereafter. You just leave it here. I might need other stuff. And you'll be joyful constantly when you hear this. So if you don't want those things in your life, then there's a waiting room out here. You can go out just for a few minutes while I read this. Should I continue? I warned you ahead of time. You'll all be exposed to all these benefits. You're staying? Okay. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully, without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Listen to Prabhupada's voice now here. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. What do you think? Too nice, right? Toonice. Too nice. Hare Krishna. You're welcome. There's something for everybody in the Bhagavad Gita. So, this is such a straightforward proposition. Krishna is God. And whatever he says, I'll just do that. And that makes a really simple life. Follow what Krishna has to say. And even if you can't do it perfectly, if your intention grows to do it, you may be encumbered by circumstances, may have some limitations, but if that desire incubates in your heart and grows, then you'll be empowered to do it more and more. But even before you're able to do it, you'll still be liberated because that's your intention to follow Krishna. You know, Prabhupada writes in the 2nd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a manifestation of his internal potency. And it is by that that particular potency that one comes to see the Lord face to face. Should I say it again? Once was enough? You don't want to hear it again?
Yes.
I'm not convinced, however. Oh, all right. The order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a manifestation of his internal potency. And it is by that particular potency that one comes to see the Lord face to face. In other words, Krishna speaks, it's eternally true. He even gives orders. And if I just pick up one of those orders and I follow it, then I'll come to see the Lord face to face. It's easier as living entities to follow the order of somebody. That's why we all do it, one way or another. We can do it the easy way or the hard way. What do you like, the easy way or do you like the hard way? Easy. Okay, let's vote. Easy way? Easy. Okay, raise your hand if you want easy way. Okay, the hard way. You want to do it the hard way? No votes? Okay. The easy way is to follow the Shastra. There's two words, Shastra and Shastra. Shastra means you hear what Krishna has to say in the Bhagavad Gita, surrender to me, follow my instructions, you go, okay. And the other way is called Shastra. It's just same spelling, only short A, and that means the sword. So who's got that? Well, Durga, for one, she's got three-pronged instrument. She rides on a tiger, and she pokes us to remind us that, hey, why don't you go the easy way instead of the hard way? So little reminders we get here in the material world from Durga. And the way to avoid that is just surrender to Krishna and go the easy way. Whatever Krishna says, I'll just follow that. So then we just have to find out what he says. And you can spend your life hearing about it and then adjusting what you do that it aligns so that it aligns with what Krishna's desire is. And so we should listen very carefully. Like, what does Krishna actually want? That's the main thing, because then all we have to do is follow it. Ye me matam vidam nityam anutishtanti manav. And don't be envious of the principle of that I can't follow it exactly right now. I'm doing the best that I can with what I have. And if you do that, then you'll surely become successful. Next. Oh, you have the mic. I thought you had a point. Passing it on. Okay, that's a good job if you can get it. What other reflections did you have so far from the purport? From the purport or from the monologue? What did you hear that you'd like to reflect back? Prabhu, thank you for your phone. Oh, thank you. I may need it again in a minute. Please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You need to hold that a little closer, please. Sorry.
I think one of the things that stuck in my mind was the companion. When you started saying companion, because in our normal mundane life, we try to seek company, either by a family or close friend. And sometimes we forget the very basic principle, as you said, Suhud is mentioned twice in Bhagavad Gita and in Bhagavatam. I think that was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, one time when I was in the New York temple, we had this really big temple. It was on 340 West 55th between 8th and 9th. Anybody here remember that place? And it was kind of a skyscraper building. And the devotees lived in there. We had 300 devotees live in there, all in one building. Everybody came to Mangalartik. 300 devotees at Mangalartik every day. And I was on Sankirtan mostly every day, and then Christmas was a good time for that. But then there's a time when it starts, I was going to the airport at that time, LaGuardia Airport. Then the airport, after a certain period, dies down because everyone's gone to where they need to go. And so our Sankirtan leader was His Holiness Ramapad Swami. And so I said, what should I do now? He said, why don't you go on traveling Sankirtan? I said, great. Who am I going with? He said, nobody. I said, I thought we were always supposed to be with somebody. He goes, well, Prabhupada said, you're never alone. Krishna's in your heart. So it was a freezing cold winter, and they gave me a van that I realized didn't have any heat. That's the ISKCON way back in the old days. Kids. Used to walk to school in the snow. So there's a way in which I got halfway down the turnpike and I realized there's no heat coming out, it's only cold air. And I was alone, and I didn't have any money, of course, because they would expect me to collect some money. And everything turned out great. In fact, it was 2 of the most exciting weeks I've ever had. Everywhere I went, I met somebody who said, hey, you could stay at our place. And I just had an adventure. And Krishna's always there in our hearts. He's directing the wanderings of all living beings, but he's especially attentive to those who are eager to do service for him and to follow his instructions. So it's an exciting life. Without taking a risk for Krishna, life is a little boring. Don't you think? Not only is it boring, it's also kind of nerve-wracking, because I'm trying to adjust things here in the material world according to my convenience, but it never quite works out. Or is that just me? Is things working out for all of you all the time? No? So they never do work out. So the best thing is to find out what Krishna's plan is and then follow that plan and just go along with it. And whatever happens in life, the Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma gives this instruction that can be really helpful to us, which is that learn to see everything that happens to you in your life as the mercy of Krishna. And so if you can come to that level of consciousness, to understand that everything that's happening to me in my life is for my purification so that I can become the best version of myself possible, so that I can be in association with Krishna constantly. That, Brahma says, that meaning that level of consciousness, is a guarantee that you'll go back to Godhead. What do you think of that? On a scale of 1 to 10. 10 means it's great, and 1 means you're not interested at all. 10? 15. 15 on a scale of 1 to 10. Yep, that's right. So this whole world actually is Krishna. We're always close to Krishna because he's within every atom. What is it? Is it a verse? Tattenu kampam susamikshimana? Okay. So verses are now appearing. I think we have a director of Shastra going on. This verse, Tattenu kampam, Sadaya Bhak, means you inherit the kingdom of God. How? By having this submissive attitude to Krishna, that whatever happens. Once in a management situation, I saw a possible disaster. In fact, I couldn't see any way out of it. Have you ever been in a situation where you saw impending disaster and it was all going to come back on you and you didn't see any way out of it? If not, I'd like to invite you to be a temple president for a little while, so you can experience the joy of not sleeping for some times. Well, yes, you've had it many times. So I had such a situation, and I went to get a little counsel, because I like to do that. I depend on devotees. I have a Rolodex. Do you know what that is? Nobody knows anymore. Yes, this little thing you turn around, it's got cards on it. Keep the numbers of people. So I keep a Rolodex of mentors. I collect them. And then when I need them, then I go and talk to them and say, what should I do? People I trust. They're Krishna conscious people. And they have maturity. So different people for different kinds of situations. So in this situation, I was lucky because I had 3 senior godbrothers that just happened to be visiting the area. So I told them I needed a consult. So I went there and told them my problem. They said, yeah, that's pretty bad. I said, thanks a lot. And I wasn't that satisfied, so I drove home thinking, yeah, that didn't help. And but then 2 days later, one of them sent me a verse from the Bhagavatam, 4th canto. It was about Prithu Maharaj. And Prithu Maharaj he was really an overachiever in a way. I mean, he did everything in grand style, Prithu Maharaj. He's the iconic great king. And is there anything on behind me? No. Might as well keep it blank for a minute. And so he was going to perform 100 horse sacrifices, which is a big deal. It's not like the ones we have that cost like, $20 to put together. They cost millions of dollars. It's like building 100, Apple headquarters in a row. And we got Kumbh Mela going on over here. So Prithu Maharaj had extended his treasury to do these huge sacrifices where they bring an animal in and kill it, bring it back to life, all the best Brahmins in the world. And he was getting up to 100, which is a benchmark that Indra had already hit. And he has this ego that, I'm the best. And so at 99, and during the performance of the 100th sacrifice, then Indra disguised himself as a sannyasi, and he came and stole the horse. And nobody stopped him because he's a sannyasi. What am I going to do? He just took the horse. And so they brought another horse, and Indra stole it again. And then on the third time, Prithu Maharaj became angry. This was going on because it was obviously Indra, and he was masquerading as a sannyasi. In fact, he came as 3 different kinds of sannyasis, and 4 Kumaras wandering the universe. They stick together. Good, front row. That's the way to get ahead in life. So Prithu Maharaj finally became angry because this was his duty as a king, to do what he was doing. And he did everything that he should do, and he extended himself fully for this. Should have lined up, but he didn't. And he was angry, and he thought, I'm going to kill Indra. So he let his priests know, I'm going to kill Indra. And they said, you can't do it. We'll do it. And they had an incantation that they would chant, and it would suck Indra into the sacred fire. And they were about to utter the last syllables of the mantra. But then Brahma said, hey, wait a minute. He came and said, you can't do this. Indra's a devotee. And, he's Indra. So don't do it. And then Brahma gave advice to Prithu Maharaj. And he said, when something happens by providential arrangement, don't try to adjust it. Tolerate. Because he said, the more you try to adjust it, the more you'll enter into the darkest regions of anxiety in your life, trying to fix the unfixable here in this material world. So that's the verse that my godbrother sent to me and said, hey, he wrote, I remember the email came in and he said, hey, I think I've got something for you here. And then he said, here's the verse. And I read it in the purport, and I felt about 92% better immediately, just by hearing the Bhagavatam, and say, yeah, I'll follow that. I'll follow that direction. I won't try to push it. I'll just leave it up to Krishna. Whatever happens, that's his mercy. And I'll do the best I can, but I'm not going to wrangle with it in my mind anymore and try to reverse what is going in a particular direction. So this is the prerogative of everybody who wants to follow Krishna, is to do one's best, do your duty, but leave the results up to Krishna. And don't try to rearrange everything. I forget if I was answering a question with that, how the thread got going. In any case, what was it? Was it somebody's point? Yours. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, you said about Krishna in the heart. And I forgot how I got to where I was. So let's see if there's any more reflections or a question. You can ask a question and really blow things up here. Okay, yes. Prabhu?
Not a question, but a reflection.
We have a mic for you. Would you like a mic?
Yeah, just that your presentation is reminding us all of the simplicity of Krishna consciousness. This is what I got from your talk so far. Quite often Krishna consciousness is presented in a very philosophical way, a very almost galley presentation. But actually Krishna consciousness is very simple. And you're presenting it in that way, which I found very refreshing, very informative.
Thanks, Prabhu. That means a lot to me. Vishwambar, right next to you. He's ready to go.
I have a question.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for your for solving the problem. But I was curious when you said 92% you were like dissolved or erased from the birth. What was, I mean, you don't have to tell me if it's private stuff, but what was holding you back? What was that 10% that was holding you back and you still felt like doubtful?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that, first of all, if I had said 100%, it would have sounded a little bit over the top. You know, I mean, who's ever 100% free from anxiety? I still had my duty to do. I still had, legal teams to talk to, and I didn't know the outcome yet. And a lot of it was just for the reputation of the temple. So anxiety isn't necessarily bad. I guess I could say that also. Prabhupada never told us, nor does the Shastra, say that, it's kartals if you want to get really loud. Yay. So our goal actually isn't to become anxiety free. When we take anxiety for Krishna, it's spiritual anxiety. In fact, Guru Kripa once asked Prabhupada, said, devotees sometimes get an anxiety about this Sankirtan, going out on the streets, and then there's book distribution, which can cause anxiety also because, what's going to happen when I go out? What if somebody says no? And so forth. And Prabhupada immediately said, tell them that this is spiritual anxiety. And he says that devotees, they volunteer for these positions in which that they can be in anxiety, but for Krishna, not for themselves. And he cited Mother Yashoda. Of course, she's the eternal mother of Krishna, but the way Prabhupada put it in the context was that she's always in anxiety. When kids are around, then there's always some excitement. And especially Krishna, he's all over the place. He's stealing. When they come and chastise him, he urinates on the floor and runs out. And he steals, he breaks things. And as a child, he's all over Vrindavan, grabbing onto calves' tails and getting dragged around in the mud and things like that. So Yashoda's always in anxiety, and Prabhupada said that this is the position of a devotee to be in anxiety for Krishna. So I guess I decided to keep 8% to follow that kind of instruction. Yes, thanks, Prabhu.
My apologies for the late, but I caught what you said about you were part of the temple where there were 300 devotees.
Yeah.
They all give Maharati.
Yeah.
It must be quite a powerful thing. So there's a bit of anxiety on my part saying that I'm sure you've seen this from the different stages.
Yes.
Very successful leader of the temple. I hope this is not too much to ask, but how do you see us moving forward? Because obviously I remember those days going to Manga, but that's not there so much anymore for a lot of us. So what would be the sort of the main thing that we keep, and do we strive to go back to those days where everyone goes to Mangalati, or what would be the sort of, just maybe focus on that main thing, that how do you as a senior, at least remember to see that it's moving forward and keeping
This one. It's here. This is an excellent question. It's very important, and it's something that we always have to ask ourselves.
Sorry.
You need it? And that is what's the essence? What is the essence of Krishna consciousness? Because obviously we have lives to live. I mean, just to that point about organizing life in a way that we can be engaged in devotional service. The experiment I've been doing in the last 19 years is going to Govardhan Hill for Kartik. I missed last year and this year because of the circumstances in the world. However, our intention was, and we carried out, a kind of yagya where we'd stay at Govardhan Hill. There's an ashram there called the Bhaktivedanta Ashram at Govardhan Hill. And we stay there for the whole month of Kartik, and we would read 5 hours a day from Bhagavatam and other books. There's a room we sit in, and everything's very regulated there because it's an ashram. Mangalartik is at 4:15, and then we have our Govardhan Parikram after Mangalartik, and then we come back and we do 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 hours at night. And I was realizing from that experience that it takes a lot of work to get to the yagya part. I mean, that's only 5 hours at 24. Of course, we did a lot of other things like Mangalartik, Tulsi Puja, and then Damodar Ashtakam at night. But still, and then I was thinking about yagyas in general, like cooking. It takes a long time to get the ingredients. If you're growing them yourself, it takes a long time to get the soil ready and then put the seeds in, and you gotta wait till it comes up. Or even if you're just getting it from the store, you have to go and buy the ingredients, and you have to earn the money to get it, and so forth. And so, this is my wife, Nirakula. See the lengths she goes to try to make everything work? Thank you. So then, let's say with cooking as a yagya, you also have to clean up. The other night, Vrindarika Ramai and a few devotees cooked lunch for some of us, and the other day I should say, and we had this lunch, and then they were cleaning up for hours afterwards, at least a couple hours, a bunch of them. And so it took a long time to cook, a long time to clean up, and how long did it take us to honor the prasadam? Not that long. And then I thought, all yagyas are like that. They have, the part of putting all the paraphernalia together takes a long time. Winding it back down again takes a long time. The part in the middle is really short. But that's the part that counts. I mean, it all counts, but that's the part where you really get it. And so it takes a lot of organization in one's life to get to the point of hitting that sweet spot, the yagya points in your life, so that you really have memorable, meaningful, inspirational sadhana. And that's important to think about that. In fact, Rupa Goswami says, the essence of all advice. Here's a book called the Upadeshamrita. It's the nectar of instruction. And then within the book, there's a verse in which he says, here's the essence of all advice. So you definitely want to tune into that, right? Tanama rupa charitari sukirtananu, smrityo kramena rasanamanasindiyoja, Tishtan vraje tananuragi jananugami, kalam nayed akilam ityupiresha saram. The saram, the cream of all advice is, he said, get organized. Get yourself organized around the principle of hearing and chanting. Now, to my next point, which is related, and that is that you'll find throughout the Shastras that the great teachers of bhakti are always truncating things for our convenience. And yes, there are 64 items of devotional service, but when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching Srila Sanatana Goswami, he brings it down to 5. And he says amazing things about these 5. He says, these 5 are so potent that even if you don't have faith in them, and you're only a little bit connected with them, you'll attain success in devotional service because they're so amazing. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, the association of like-minded devotees, living in a holy place like the Dham, or a temple like the Bhaktivedanta Manor, associating with devotees, chanting Hare Krishna, and worshiping the deities. Do any of these 5 sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Please say yes. Yes. Okay, good. Then you're okay. So if you remain in contact with these 5 somehow or other, you're going to advance in devotional service, if you're not offensive. So in a community, in a household, wherever you may be, you keep this in mind because it can seem overwhelming. How am I going to get all this done? How am I going to become a pure devotee? How am I actually going to do a yajna when I got so many other things going on? How can I live up to this standard? Well, keep in mind that if you keep some kind of connection with these 5, and any combination, or any of them at all, you're going to advance in devotional service. So when you're planning a community or a family or your own life, think about it. How can I stay at least a little bit in contact with all of these 5 or at least one of them? And if you do that, you're always going to be on track. Because those are the essential points in devotional service through which we make great advancement. And feel free to escalate it. I mean, all the Shastra says, if you really want to go for it, nobody's going to stop you. Nobody can stop you, because Krishna will give you all help from every direction if you get it in your mind that, look, I'm just going to really surrender to Krishna and I'm going to put more into my devotional service. Who can stop you? If they could put you in jail and they won't stop. We have a devotee who's in jail for life. No possibility of parole. I went to visit him, and in Arizona prison, which was it was special ops. They dropped me in the desert and I drove across the desert in a rent-a-car. I couldn't see anything. I kept calling Nirkula at home for coordinates. I said, where am I? And in the middle of the desert, where's the prison? He said, just keep driving. And even the GPS, it just said nothing. Just a straight line through the desert. So I was panicked because I'd come all that way. We were supposed to meet with what was his name? The chaplain from the prison, and then it was my only chance to get in and see him at a particular time. You have to make special arrangements to go to prison. And so finally I saw some barbed wire fence and I thought, yeah, this is probably it. And I got there just in time. All the guards were on changing shift, and they were all going inside. They have to have net bags to keep all their stuff so they can see it. You can see everything. I was thinking about the material world in context of the prison too. When I was going in there, I was thinking, I hope they remember that I'm not like part of the prison. And I must say, I had an eerie sense when the doors closed behind me. It's like, you remember, right? I came from out there. As souls, we want to be free. We don't want to be confined in the material world. So I went to meet our devotee in there. Actually, he took initiation in the jail. And only myself and the chaplain were in the room. We had to have the chaplain as a chaperone, but he kind of stayed in the corner. He was a nice Indian man, by the way. He was a Christian from Kerala. And so anyway, I met with him, and he wears orange. He has shaved head, gets up at the same time every day, goes to bed at the same time every day. And he looked happy. I said, you look kind of happy. in jail, no possibility of parole. And happy? And he said, yeah, I really am happy. I'm in here chanting Hare Krishna. And I get regulated time to read every day. And he said, I smile a lot. And it's good because people ask me all the time in here, he said, you're not getting out of here. How come you're so happy? And he said, I'm glad you asked me that. And when I was leaving that prison, the chaplain was telling me, you know that guy, he's getting a lot of people into reading the Bhagavad Gita. We need some more Gitas in here. I said, how many do you need? He said, at least a couple hundred. Because he tells everybody. They say, why are you smiling? It's like, well, let me tell you about it. So you'll do okay in prison. So you could do okay in an apartment or in a house. If you're overburdened by having too much money, which is a real problem for many people. You have that oppressive feeling, I got too many things, I got too much money in the bank. Just take time to read the Bhagavatam with like-minded devotees. Chant Hare Krishna better than you're doing it now. You know, like in an instrument, you don't have to learn a lot of embellishments. You just have to learn to do the things you're doing now right. Like I had this Madanga, there was a devotee who played Madanga very nicely. It was in Japan. And I said, he was from South America, he was just visiting there. I said, you know, tell me more about the Madanga and how to play it. And he said, well, you just have to play it right. You have to hit it nicely. And even if you play simple beats, but you hit it really nicely, then it'll sound nice. And so it's the simple processes in devotional service. For instance, Bhaktivedanta Thakur said, follow the simple path strictly. Follow the simple path strictly. You don't have to get really fancy. Like once Prabhupada noticed the devotees, he said, our process is, all you have to do is chant Hare Krishna and you'll be successful. And he said, I noticed that my disciples are collecting many austere books. You know, big piles of books, like maybe I'll get an edge on everybody. I'll find out something that nobody else knows, like a special mantra. It's like, we already have a special mantra. There was a letter I read Prabhupada wrote to Jayananda Prabhu, who was, you know, he was an amazing devotee. He was so surrendered to Prabhupada. I knew him because he was my bhakti leader in San Francisco in 1973. And there was a letter I read later that Prabhupada had written to him. And I didn't see the letter that Jayananda Prabhu wrote to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada said, he said, it's the same old answer, chant Hare Krishna. The same old answer, chant Hare Krishna. So, hey, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll try listening more carefully to my rounds, or, you know, just being more attentive to the simple things that I'm doing. Kind of a long answer to your question, but I'm really passionate about it. You do have to, we do have to adjust to the various eras in our lives. It's not always going to be the same thing. And we're always going to have changing circumstances in our life. So if we stick to the basics of Krishna consciousness and take shelter of them really deeply, then we'll be really successful. In fact, and the last thing I'm going to say about this, because I know I'm going on, but in the Sri Krishna Upanishad it says, Vidyam cha yas, tad vedo bayam saha, avidyayam ratum tirtva, vidyayam ratum ashnate. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge, you guys know the Sri Krishna Upanishad, side by side, can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. What this verse is actually saying is, our being mixed up in the material world is not a detriment. While we're cultivating Krishna consciousness, the juxtaposition of our material life and the spiritual life together actually gives us more impetus for spiritual life and more realization. Not that we have to bring in more material circumstances, we already have them. All we have to do is add Krishna consciousness and we'll be okay. What do you think? Okay, thank you. Okay, we have just 14 more minutes if I'm not incorrect. Is that right? Anyone? Anyone? Is that correct, Prabhu? what time are we ending? 8:21?
Yes.
Okay. Prabhu.
Thank you so much for showing so much knowledge this evening. I think we're quite honoured because it seems like we've had a drought for some time here at Manor, and it's a great privilege that you've come all the way to speak to us. Something that you were talking about when you're in this situation and you were trying to find a solution to it. The solution was to leave in Krishna's hands. And I was just thinking that how do we discriminate when we should endeavor versus what could seem like the easy option where we just say, I'll just leave it in Krishna's hands, sleep or do something else. How do we discriminate when we should do something versus
Right, because the verse says when something's providential, then don't monkey around with it. And there's an old saying about, I'll know it when I see it. So when you feel that it's become intractable, then there's no harm in handing it over to Krishna. If more information comes in that prompts you to take more action, fine. But when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Because there's a way in which, I think that I'm the controller and therefore I can solve it with my intelligence. And I keep going in that way. So even if we are smart and even if we have the duty to solve things with our intelligence, we always have to be humble about it. And, look at the Bhagavatam. Brahma, he's the smartest person in the universe. His SATs were like, you don't have that here. That's an American. You have it? Okay. So Brahma, one scenario that I always appreciate, because he's a manager, leader, creator, and he got really frustrated because the earth got knocked off its axis apparently and fell into the Garbadak Ocean. And he wasn't sure about how to get a crew out there to pull it back up. That's a kind of a conundrum on Brahma's level. And he was sitting there thinking, what should I do? And praying to Krishna. And a boar came out of his nose. That's pretty interesting. And it started flying around. Krishna has a sense of humor, I said that earlier. And oftentimes, when we do the best we can, but we're prayerful about it, and we leave it in Krishna's hands, we're doing our duty, then a boar will come out of our nose. And it's like, how did that happen? It always happens by Krishna's arrangement somehow. That's one of the reasons Sankirtan is such a nice program. We've been noticing that when we always set a fresh goal to reach, it's self-imposed anxiety. Because we decide this is what we're going to do, this is the goal, and we're not going to settle for anything less. And then we start losing sleep over it. And then we have this edict that we have to assume that it can be done. There's no talk like, hey, it can't happen. That can't, it's not allowed in the conversation. So we assume it can be done, and then we start working towards it. And then always some miracle happens. And not always in enough time to save us from being in complete anxiety. And once Radhika Raman Prabhu, the great Radhika Raman? You know him? He grew up in Krishna consciousness. He's an acharya-like figure in the world and will be throughout, as he goes on. He was talking about how, when Prahlad Maharaj, when they threw him over the cliff, Krishna caught him at the bottom. I say, why does he do that? Why not just at the top? He said, well, it gives the devotee more opportunity to take shelter. And so, when we set goals and then we go for them in Krishna's service, and then we see that somehow or other it happened, we realize and we have more faith that it's Krishna doing it. Lord Chaitanya is making it happen. And if we do that in all the aspects of our life, then It's a very exciting life, actually. In fact, Prabhupada said, it's a replacement for gambling. Anybody have a gambling habit? You don't have to admit it right now. But 5% of the population are, dormantly addicted to gambling. That's why they walk in a casino and it's like, you sold the house? Yeah, it's gone. So, Prabhupada said there's a replacement for gambling. You know what it is? Surrender to Krishna. As you just put everything on the line. It's like, oh, you mean you're not going to surrender to Krishna and let him take care of you? It's like, who's been taking care of us up till now? It's all Krishna. But if we put ourselves in his hands, then it becomes exciting, an exciting prospect in life. Don't you think? Yes. Say yes. Hare Krishna. Okay, a couple more minutes. So we'll take one more question and a bhajan. Yes, Prabhu. And we'll give you the mic in 7 seconds or less, or your money back from tonight's program.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
I noticed that you're very loud when there's children making noises or there's a disturbance. And those speakers to get very angry at certain disturbances. Could you give some sort of tips for the parents about how to...
Well, I could just tell you an observation I've had. I'm the youngest of 4, so I didn't have any kids younger than me. I joined the movement when I was 16, so I didn't have a lot of god brothers that were younger than me, god brothers or god sisters. And then I got in this community. I was brahmachari for 13 years. And then we didn't have any kids. And then we went to Silicon Valley, ISKCON, and tons of kids. And I remember one day I was sitting in class, I was giving a class in our old temple. The light came on just in case. And one of our children, he was probably 5 at the time, the door swung open. He just walked right across through the class, tromp, 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 with a gaze in his eye like there's nobody else here. And I was thinking, like, who are these creatures? But then I grew up with them. Not just him, all the kids there. Now we have over 300 kids. And I grew up with them. And I started seeing these are amazing souls coming in to serve Lord Chaitanya's movement. Not only that, I took 5 5-year-olds out on Sankirtan as an experiment. And we went door to door. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And that started our kids' Sankirtan program that day. It was like, wow, they like this. And it's really nice when they're there under protection and guidance. And so as I got to know the kids and see their potential and see that they were actually really good association, and that some of the wildest among them became these very respectful, very responsible, intelligent young people who are now, many of them 20 years old, some of them 17 in PhD programs and things like that. And so I changed, and I started seeing that kids are really the backbone, the basis of any community. And I started putting my heart and soul into it, not as a calculation, it was just really spontaneous. Because I like the kids now. I like being around them and hearing and chanting with them and watching them grow up in Krishna consciousness and watching how they encourage one another. So that's my story. I don't have any particular tips except for that kids like to hear and chant. And if you organize hearing and chanting sessions, teach them a lot of shlokas. In fact, there's a study called the Sanskrit effect that shows that when kids learn a lot of Sanskrit shlokas, their brains grow bigger. You read that? That's pretty cool. We got a lot of shlokas you can learn. They can learn Sri Upanishad in a month just by sitting there and chanting it every day. They can learn the Upadeshamrita in about 3 weeks if you just chant it with them on a regular basis. They can learn first canto, second chapter, Bhagavatam, anything And then you start discussing the philosophy, and then add Sankirtan and, you know, the 5 processes, and we could take over the world with the kids, because actually I'll tell you one other thing at the risk of going too long, but I started interviewing. I got really interested in you know, how children develop in ISKCON. So I called some of my godbrothers and godsisters, and when I found out that some of them were initiated at a younger age than I was, which was some of them 12 and 14, probably gave initiation to kids. And so I started talking to them on the phone, and I got a conference call together with some of them and said, so what was it like being that young? And what was it that inspired you the most? You want me to tell you what they said? Sorry, we're out of time. I gotta go. They said, number one, they said that seeing peers doing great. Seeing peers doing great. 4 words, and they all concurred on that. Seeing peers doing great. So if you have places where peers can see, they can see their peers doing great in Krishna consciousness, that's a inspiration to them. And the other thing they said was they wished for, in that generation, more upward mobility. In other words, at that time, there was no consideration that the kids would be empowered to do take more responsibility for the Krishna consciousness movement. However, they said that they would have liked it. And we can see that when we empower kids at younger ages and give them responsibility, they're creative, they're smart, they can do it, and ownership turns sand into gold. So those 2 are tips. And then now we'll have a bhajan. Do we have a harmoniist in the house? Oh, Prabhu, yes, I have a note. I'm sorry. Okay, a question from an anonymous person, which is always dangerous, because you can say anything you want. I'm an elderly Sankirtan person, and younger devotees have told me I complain a lot and get I complain a lot and get in the way, I think, and that I am greedy. How can I continue Sankirtan in that situation? Well, don't complain. Don't get in the way. And be greedy for Krishna. It's okay to be greedy for Krishna. It's called lalyam. Krishna bhakti ras bhavitomati kriyatam yadi kritopi labdate. Tata lalyam apimulyam ekalam janmakoti sukritirna labdate. Rupa Goswami's formula for becoming Krishna conscious is be really greedy for it. And that's called lalyam. So you could be greedy, but just do it for Krishna and no one will mind. Problem solved. Okay, let's do Doyle Nitai Chaitanya Boli, but it's okay, we don't need a harmoniist. We can sing without it. But I do need a certified kartalist. Do we have certified kartalists? At least 2. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, good to see you. Okay, do we have another kartalist? This is a very joyful song. It calls for kartals, and I'll tell you exactly how to play this particular part. It goes like this. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachare Armar Man Doyal Chaitanya Bole Nachare Armar Man. And then it goes like this. Nachare Armar Man Nachare Armar Man Nachare Armar Man Nachare Armar Man. Hey! Nachare Armar Man Nachare Armar Man Nachare Armar Man Nachare Armar Man Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachare Armar Man Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachare Armar Man. Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman. Hey! Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Doyal Tonai Hai, Doyal Tonai Hai, Ebon Doyal Tonai Hai, Marake Prema De. Ebon Doyal Tonai Hai, Marake Prema De. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman. Hey! Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Ore aparada dure jabe, pabe premadan. Ore aparada dure jabe, pabe premadan. Vicharto nai hai, Vicharto nai hai. Oh, name aparad, Vicharto nai hai. 1, 2, 3. Oh, name aparad, Vicharto nai hai. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman. Hey! Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Takon Krishna Name Ruche Habe, Gucci Bebandan. Takon Krishna Name Ruchi Habe, Gucci Bebandan. Anuragto habe hai, Anuragto habe hai, Krishna name Anuragto habe hai, Krishna name Anuragto habe hai. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman. Hey! Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli, Nachariyar Marman. Takon anayatse sapal habe, Jivira Jivan. takon anayase sapal habe jivera jiva. Jivanto michehe, Jivanto michehe, Krishna rati vina, Jivanto michehe, Krishna rati vina, Jivanto michehe. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachriyar Marman Haribo! Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachriyar Marman Nachriyar Marman Nachriyar Marman Nachriyar Marman Nachriyar Marman. Hey! Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachriyar Marman Eshe Brindavane Radha Shamer Pabe Darshan Eshe Brindavane Radha Shamer Pabe Darshan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda came to this world like the sun and the moon rising simultaneously on the eastern horizon of Gauda to wonderfully bestow benediction upon everyone. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to small villages. He met highly learned scholars like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He met Vasudeva the leper and embraced him. Everywhere he went, he gave away love for God, and Lord Nityananda personally went door to door and begged people, please chant the names of Gauranga, please listen to Krishna's teachings, and surrender to Krishna, and your life will be sublime. And Srila Prabhupada brought the same teachings across the ocean, and he went door to door in India, then in America, with no money. He started chanting Hare Krishna in a park, set up a little Bhagavad Gita class in a tiny little room in New York City. In freezing cold winter, he walked around thinking, how can I bring Lord Chaitanya's message to the people of the world? And gradually, people came to the park and they began to dance. They came and listened to the Bhagavad Gita class. And then they said, how can we help? And then a temple opened in San Francisco. And then a temple opened in New Mexico, Montreal. And then some devotees came here to the UK and asked the Beatles, hey, would you like to be a Hare Krishna? George Harrison said, yeah, sure. How'd you like a house so you guys can live in? And here we are. The Hare Krishna movement is meant to be spread all over the world. Every village means every language. And it means a life of excitement. Going outside the ordinary boundaries of life that are completely boring, and at the end of life, when you're leaving, you say, oh, why didn't I spend more time going out and taking risks for Lord Chaitanya? So the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they hear this song in their heart, and they remember that by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, anything is possible. So you can hear devotees at night, when they're sleeping, in their hearts, there's a sound that's coming out. And when they're thinking in the daytime, how can I do more service for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's also a mantra coming out from their thinking process. And it gathers into a symphony of voices from the heart and from their minds. And it sounds like this. Gaur Kripa Hole Hai, Gaur Kripa Hole, Gaur Kripa Hole Hai. Chaitanya Bole, Nachare Armarman. Nachare Armarman, Nachare Armarman, Nachare Armarman, Nachare Armarman. Hey! Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo! Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Shri Harinam Mantra ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu ki. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole. Nach Re Amar Man. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole. Nach Re Amar Man. Nach Re Amar Man. Nachare Armarman, Nachare Armarman, Nachare Armarman. Hey! Nachare Amarman, Nachare Amarman. Go Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo. For our harmonium player, for the kartalis, for the Hare Krishna singers, for the Hare Krishna dancers, for everybody in the UK, all over Europe, all over the world. Go Premanande! Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can you all hear me? How was the Maha Sanga? That was like 4 on the scale of 10. How was the Maha Sanga? That's now 8. How was the Maha Sanga? Thank you so much, Maharaj, for giving us your association this evening. It's been really nice hearing and chanting, and especially appreciating Srila Bhaktivedanta Manor and these 2 beautiful bhajans. So we're very grateful to you. Thank you very much once again. Let's hear from His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu.
Thank you.